You all know who I am. Now we move on to the wonderful Greg Davies, Executive Director, author, the storyteller extraordinaire, who's now going to give us a presentation about I don't know
what. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being on, and thank you, Maggie and John, for hosting these sessions every single month. There are a lot of things that happen in this region that are not BNI things. They are regional things, and they're things that our incredible regional team have put together. And this is one of them. So I think, Maggie, is this your 3rd anniversary now?
It is, yeah.
These drop-in sessions, and they have become such a major support mechanism for all members. They started off just being for first-year members, but as the first-year members graduated to years 2 and 3, they didn't want to leave these sessions, so they're now opened up to all members, so that they can get the most out of them. So thank you, John. Thank you, Maggie. And thank you, everyone who's been ferrying Maggie around recently after her ingrown toenail operation. And okay, it was a knee operation, but I'm trying to put it down. I don't want it to be too much of a diva. Maggie asked me to come on once a year. Any more than that, everyone would get bored of me, which is pretty standard. And basically, my brief has been just to give you my keys to success. But I often find that trying to tell entrepreneurs to do things in a certain way never really works out well. We don't really like following instructions because we're entrepreneurial. So I'm just going to tell a few stories about the lessons that I've learned from the very worst members that I've come across in my 18 years in BNI now. This presentation, can everyone see my screen? Yep. So you should be
Yep.
So the presentation is based around a phrase that Ivan Meisner uses, which is do 6 things 1,000 times and not 1,000 things 6 times. And it's about this inclination that we have as business owners to be distracted by bright, shiny objects. I'm sure there are some people on this call that had something that works so well in their business that they stopped doing it and started doing something else. And then we never really get back to those things that work incredibly well. So one of Ivan's saying, and I'm assuming everyone knows who Ivan is. Ivan was the founder of BNI. Over 38 years ago, he founded BNI, and his go-to saying is about doing 6 things 1,000 times and not 1,000 things 6 times. So I've put together 6 actions where I've seen people massively fail in the past. And hopefully just by sharing their mistakes with you, you'll be able to avoid those and get the most out of your membership. So number 1, quite simply, is to make a plan. And I'm not talking about a business plan. I don't want to know about your 90-day growth or your annual, your 3-year or your 5-year plan. I don't want to know about your profit and loss. I don't want to know about your all your different bank accounts where you put your tax and your VAT and that stuff. I want you to make a plan for your BNI membership. So right now, I want you to put your expectations down on paper, what you expect to receive from BNI, so that at the time where someone says, are you going to renew your membership, you can look at your plan and say, yep, I'm going to renew. It's been worth it for me, and I want to stay part of this Givers Gain community. And the reason why this is number 1 on my mistake list is I've often had a conversation with members of my own chapter when I was a member about whether or not they were looking to renew for another year. And they said to me, I don't think I'm going to renew because I didn't get what I thought I was going to get from BNI. So I then used to follow up the question, well, what were you expecting to get from BNI? And sadly, the response was always, I don't really know, but I thought I would get more. And what can be measured can be improved. So when we put an expectation down, and it could be 10, 20, 50, 100,000 pounds, we can start putting the right activities in place to work towards that return. And only when we've got that expectation can we measure it accurately against our reality. So I would strongly recommend everyone have a business plan for their business. And if you haven't got one, go and see the business coach in your chapter. And if you haven't got one in your chapter, let us know. We'll recommend some great ones across the region. But also put a plan in place for your BNI membership and make sure that you are doing BNI right. Because when you're doing it right, like a lot of people on this call, BNI will be the only marketing activity you ever need to do. But we need that plan in place to be able to work towards those correct activities. And when we look at the correct activities, the best thing to do is follow the system. Now, again, this is what I was saying about us being entrepreneurial. Now, you imagine if BNI hadn't been invented and I walked into Dragon's Den and I said, Dragons, I've got an idea for a business. I want to get entrepreneurs in a room to follow a system. And before I got the next sentence out of my mouth, every one of them, normally starting with Peter Jones, because he's a bit bolshy, every one of them would say that they were out before I got to the next sentence. And the reason being is because as entrepreneurs, we inherently like to change the system. So we say, hey, this works here. You'll be like, oh, I can tweak that. I can do it better. There's a shortcut here and there's a shortcut there. But our system wasn't put together by Ivan. It wasn't put together by people like me or franchise owners or BNI managers. Every system and process and policy and procedure and agenda item meeting was put there by members of BNI. It was put there by people like you. And I know this because for years, Maggie served on an international board of advisors where any change to our policy, our agenda, the way we structure our meetings, the way we communicate had to be passed through a committee of members. And there's only 2 representatives in the UK. And because Maggie stepped up to an area director role, she could no longer represent that seat. So we passed it down to another standalone member, which is Michael Cochran from Prince Imperial. So the system has been put in place over 4 decades through trial and error, and it's put in place by members because it works. So when I say follow the system, the very clearest way that we have to document the income generating activities in your membership is the traffic lights. And the first time you see the traffic lights, it may look a little bit like that. It may look like that art installation on Canary Wharf. And you might be thinking, what do all these colors mean? What do all these numbers mean? The main thing about the member traffic lights when they're shared with you is we only put a score against the things that earn you money. So there isn't a score on the traffic lights, for example, for how many members you join into your chapter, because that's a metric for me and my region and my business. There is, however, a score for how many visitors that turn up to your chapter that you invite, because ultimately 4 out of every 5 visitors don't join BNI, but they pass business, they bring connections, and they extend your network. So that's why there is a score in place against bringing visitors and not joining people into your chapter. So when you're looking to get more out of your membership, or if you feel that your membership has hit a flat spot, look at the stuff that we score on the traffic lights and make sure you're doing an equal amount of each of those activities, and you'll find that your return begins increasing again. And when are you going to do that? When are you going to find time to do that? Well, a lot of people turn up at a BNI meeting just before it starts. And the last time they think about BNI is when the president does an inspirational quote at the end of that meeting. And for the rest of the 6 days and almost 7 days worth of meetings, so worth of the week, they don't think about BNI at all. The most productive people in terms of return from their membership block out an hour in their diary every single week. And the big mistake that I've seen people make here is they start trying to embrace one side of our philosophy. So they'll block out an hour. Mine was always 2 p.m. on a Friday. I just found like it was more productive for me. So there were less emails coming in, less phone calls going. If I tried to call someone, they were quite happy to talk to me because they were trying to wind down their clock. So 2 p.m. on a Friday was always great. But if I didn't hit 2 p.m., 3 p.m. also worked. 10 a.m. on a Monday also worked. The fact is I put it in my diary, and the majority of the times I hit it. However, the big mistake that people make here is they try to embrace the gain side of our philosophy, give us gain first. So they'll go out their way to try to find a specific referral for someone else, or they'll try to invite a visitor on behalf of a member in their chapter. Givers gain is two words, and they are both as equally important as one another. So the very first thing that you need to do to be an active member of your chapter and the region is ensure that you're getting a return from your BNI membership. So the very first batch of those hour sessions in a week, you should make sure that your BNI profile is up to date. You should ensure that you've got your next 6 to 8 weeks of specific referrals and weekly referrals. You should do the follow-up on the visitors that have attended, ask them to connect with them on LinkedIn, all of that kind of stuff. It's going to promote you first, because it's incredible when members come in and they burn really brightly. They pass hundreds of referrals and thousands of pounds worth of business. But I've seen so many of those after 3, 4, 5, 6 months say, well, I'm not getting anything, and they leave BNI. So your very first batch of happy hours, your BNI hours that you plug into your diary, you should focus on making sure that your BNI house is in order first. So make sure all of that looks great. Make sure you've done the training that you want to do, and make sure that you are ready to receive the referrals that will be coming to you. And the next thing is to grow your network. Now, we've got chapters all around the world now that are classed as double diamond chapters. They are 200 plus members in a single chapter. Now, you might say, oh, that sounds like a flight of fancy, but we've got chapters in this region which are 50 plus. We've got 3 recognized platinum chapters, Prince Imperial, Churchill, and Spitfires. And we've also got chapters in the UK that are 100 plus. We've got Business for Business in Enfield, which is 100 plus members. And there are 2 ways of you earning more from your BNI membership. Number 1, you can work 10 times as hard as you currently are. Number 2, you can just get more people like you in your room. It's as simple as that. When I came into the region, the biggest chapter was early 40s. I think there were 41 members at the time. That was Prince Imperial. The next chapter down was Churchill at 34. And then we didn't have another single chapter in the 30s. We now have the highest average chapter size in the whole of the UK and Ireland. And as a result of growing your network space, the last 5 years running, we have won awards for the highest average seat value and the most retained members. So it means members in this region join bigger chapters, they earn more, and as a result, they stay longer. However, it didn't always start like that. We've got Dave here from Keene. I've got Margaret from Paragon. At one point, Keene was 7 members and Paragon were 11 members, and they've grown to the sizes that they are today. So there's one easy way of growing your network. That's to run a brilliant meeting. And I haven't been to a single chapter in this region that if it was my first BNI experience, I wouldn't have joined. So you're all running great meetings. The next step is to share it with new people. So that means having visitors in the room each week. And we only ever want a visitor to come once, then it's down to them what they do after that. And the third thing is to follow up. It's the biggest mistake that people make in business. We do it all the time. We send quotes out and then we sit there with our fingers crossed and kind of stare at the screen and hope for an email back. The biggest failing of any business is not to follow up. And that's the same with any chapter. We have incredible visitors in the room and then no one phones them after and says, do you want to get involved? So growing your network is the easiest way to increase a return from your membership. The next big mistake that people make is that they keep their heads below the parapet. They say things like, oh, I'm too busy to take a role on the top table, or, oh, I don't really like public speaking, so don't ask me to do the education slot. Let me tell you, BNI will take you anywhere and everywhere you want to go in life, but you have to throw your hat in the ring. This is a picture of me on the last trip before COVID. My God, I look a state. I think I had COVID there. Look at me. That's with the founder of BNI, Ivan Meisner, and myself and fellow executive director, Julian Lewis, put finishing touches to the book that we wrote with Ivan. Now, when I came into BNI, I was scruffy, mid-20s, solopreneur, one-man band, essentially. I've now spoken on stages all over the world. I've written a book with the founder of BNI. Everything that I've wanted, however, I asked to be the education coordinator. I asked to be the president of my chapter. I asked to step onto the regional team. You have to take the opportunity when it's presented to raise your profile. And for anyone on here who thinks they're too busy to take a role, what makes you busier than the other people in the room? What makes you, I mean, Russ came to me. Is Russ still on or has he gone off? Where is he? Oh, he's gone off. I can talk about him now. Russ came to me and he said, I'm just so busy. However, I want it done in a certain way. I want it done right. So I'm going to do it. And he was a fantastic president of Prince Imperial, much to the disdain of a lot of the members, because Russ has a beautiful ability of telling it exactly as it is. So he really, really took hold of the chapter because he wanted it done right. And he didn't use the excuse that I'm too busy or I haven't got the skills. He made sure that he was the person leading from the front. So you have every opportunity, and BNI will take you anywhere you want to go in the world, and it will help you with any ambition at all. You just have to throw your hat in the ring and raise your profile. And the last big tip is to lean into your BNI membership. If you imagine your BNI membership as a river, we all get in at the same point. Some of us get out after a year. Some of us get out after 5, 10, 15. Maggie is still in that water. All her little fingertips are kind of like little raisins right now because she's been in the water so long. The fact is we actually don't know how long a BNI membership can last. We still have an original member who joined on day one of the very first chapter in the UK and Ireland and has now been a member for over 26 years. And it sickens me that he looks younger than me. It's unbelievable. So we don't know how the longevity of a BNI membership. We don't know the longevity of a BNI chapter. We still have the original chapter that was formed on day one, 38 years ago in Southern California. So we don't know what the lifespan is. What I do know is there are two ways to travel down that BNI river. Number one, you go face down, you face upstream, and you kick and scream and splash against everything you possibly can. So you ask, well, why do we invite visitors? Well, why do we have to go to trainings? Well, why do I have to do one-to-ones? Well, why should I turn up early? Why should I stay late? Why do I have to wear a name badge? Why do I have to wear a pin? Why do I have to be specific? And by the time you get out, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're battered, and you're bruised. The other way, of course, is to lay on your back and go with a flow of the river that's been put there for 4 decades by people far more intelligent than me, people like you, by members who have made it work. And you just tap yourself in the right direction to make sure that you go with the flow, but exactly where you want to end up. And at that point where you decide to get out of that river, you're going to feel refreshed, relaxed, and like you've had a fantastic journey. So my big 6 points are to make a plan, follow that system, put time aside, make sure you grow your network, raise your profile, and lean into your BNI membership. Because that was the lessons from the very worst member that I ever saw. And that member was me. I spent the first year to 18 months of my membership kicking and screaming and thinking I knew better. And it was only when wonderful people, my fellow members around me, flung their arms around me and said, do you realize what this could do for you if you treated it properly? And I've always said, and I will say until the day that I get out of this river, they'll probably have to carry me out in a box, to be fair, that I'm only good at this because I've made every single mistake. And if the one message I can give to you that you leave with today is this, then I'm happy. I've made every mistake, so you don't have to. Thank you very much.